Welcome to another in our series of Kehillat Israel podcasts. This is a recording of Rabbi Amy Bernstein's weekly Friday morning Torah study.
We are in Parshat Lech Lecha. So we are in Bereshit, we are in Genesis, we are in the narrative of our family. So we came out of the creation of humanity. Then we come into the line of Noach after humanity has a hard reset. And so we follow the line of Noach. And then 10 generations later, we get the birth of Avram and Sarai. We get the story of Avram and Sarai, which of course is our foundational narrative about our family. So we go from humanity to our tiny family. Then from our family, we're going to become a people, right? So that's the arc of the 5 books. That's the arc of the story. It starts with all of humanity, comes down to Noach and Avram and Sarai, our family, and then becomes a story about us becoming a people. So the rest of the book of Genesis is going to be about this family and the generations of this family. And of course, the book of Exodus will begin the story of the birth of the nation, the people of Israel.
This is the anthropological formula for every in some variation.
Yeah, so every culture has their foundational people, their ancestor stories. These are our ancestor stories. So one of the questions we always want to ask is not why is there a story about ancestors? All terrestrial human culture have stories about ancestors. Our question that we always want to ask about the Torah text is, so what's the Israelite innovation? What is the Israelite take on ancestor stories, right? So that's what we ask when we're looking at Avram and Sarai. What are the Israelites trying to communicate in telling these stories about their foundation? Like when we get to the 12 brothers, we're going to get an understanding of, oh, right, they're trying to tell a story that has those 12 tribes have common roots because you're trying to get a federation to work together, trying to get Jews to work together. We know how that usually goes. So, that's why we read those ancestors back into being brothers, into being a family, because you're trying to map that onto a confederation of tribes. So now we have to ask, what are the stories of Avram and Sarai? What are the stories about them come to tell us about how we understand who we are in the world? That's number one. But number two is, in this case, it's also about what were the ancestor stories before Avram and Sarai. So one year I taught to y'all about Sarah and Rivka from the perspective of Mesopotamian priestesses, and that Sarai is probably a priestess and possibly princess, and that's what Sarai means, is princess. Sarai is probably a princess and a priestess in Mesopotamian Canaanite culture that becomes the matriarch of the Israelite folk, which means she got a demotion, right? Because Israel was a patriarchy. So they take both the serpent, that is the symbol of the creatrix, the mother god, right? Mother God gets turned into the serpent, the Nachash, because she has to be demoted for Yahweh to be the male supreme God. Same with all of the other goddesses, fertility goddesses, priestesses, all of those now get demoted to being sisters and wives, if they're mentioned at all. Okay? So there's lots of evidence from the great scholar Savina Tuval. If you want to know more about that, it's fascinating. The stories are completely understandable if you read them as Mesopotamian priestess stories, and that having been the legacy they come from. These stories make a lot more sense if you understand it that way.
Are you aware of any other culture that has had the same kind of root structure and has lasted and strengthened over the centuries as ours has?
So what do you mean by root structure?
Well, the early family story, the beginning stories like we have with Noah or Avram and so on, and then evolved the way it has with other family stories, brothers and so forth, not wives, but what do you call them?
Concubines?
Concubines. And with all these stories has maintained its integrity and is stronger than ever. in modern things.
Some, yeah. But what happened to a lot of cultures that did not happen to the Jewish people is that they were conquered and converted. So there's a lot of places where the matriarchal stories become associated with Catholicism. And so now it's the Virgin of Guadalupe, right? So those stories now get taken over by the Catholic Church. So would we say, yes, they remain strong and vibrant and whatever, they're just Catholic? Or do we say, no, their culture was demolished by an imperial religion that came in and mapped itself onto them? And so therefore there isn't that original, what fill in the blank culture that would have continued as did ours. And ours has evolved, obviously, too, like drastically evolved.
Yes.
But we have not been subject to imperial religion.
Define imperial religion.
Imperial religion are religions who say it's true not only for us, but for everybody. Everybody has to be what we are, or they're wrong, or they need to die, or they're heretics, or they're, right? So both Muslims and Catholics said those are both imperial religions, Islam and Catholicism, that say it's not just true for us as a people, it's true for everybody. And if you want to be part of the true religion, you have to convert.
Can I go back? What was the benefit for taking women from a high elevation to a lower elevation?
There are lots of theories about that. There's a great book called The Chalice and the Blade that looks at matriarchal and matrilineal cultures and talks about what life was like and what the stories were like under those cultures versus when patriarchy takes over and what happens. When no one's sure why the move to patriarchy. It just is. It's a fact. It happened. And in that process, of course, the goddess and all of those religious functionaries were reduced who were female. Okay. So let's.
But you don't have. But there's nothing you can say succinctly that is clear as a benefit, because
power is the move.
Yeah, no, but power went from female to male.
Power is the move that men made.
I'm with
right.
that.
Right. I'm just saying. I don't know why. I don't know what the benefit is. Power. The benefit is control. Now, why people went along with that? That's.
No, but it's not the benefit. Okay. What is the societal benefit? Because things don't happen and stay unless there's a societal benefit.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true.
We've just witnessed
That's
it.
not true.
Well, it might be.
That's categorically untrue.
With the election. We've just witnessed. It's not benefit society, but it happened.
All right. So, okay. So, we're not going to veer that far off topic, because I want to jump into the text. What I can say is there are people who take power and they do terrible things to the society. Terrible, terrible things. And it goes on for a very long time. And it does not help the population. It helps the people in power and it helps the people in control of resources. Some of the things that affect what happens in the ancient world is about the shifting of populations because there is a famine, because there is terrible destruction from natural whatever. And then there's environmental pressures that start pushing people around. Well, when you start pushing people around, you can't push them to where there is nobody, right? That means war. That means people come in and take over. So there are lots of changes that happen that are about disruptions in the natural world, in the cycle of crops or herds, all of those kinds of things, devastating climate change, which we've seen before, whether it's an ice age or, whatever. And so those things seriously impact the shifting of human societies and not societies, but like groups of people who are taking from other people the good land that is still productive. Then they get control and then they do what they want. So the historians, you have to look at anthropology and history to understand the forces at play in any kind of major shift. The arguments are still going on about what is the move to patriarchy. But it's clearly about power. It's clearly about access to power, and it's about keeping that power at whatever cost necessary. There are theories, Jim, that it's about land, and now there needs to be land for the sons, and you don't know it's your son unless there is a patriarchal system that controls access to women's sexuality. So there's a huge thing of scholarship that says it's about men passing land to men when agriculture becomes the norm and you stop being nomadic. And so then men need to pass land to their sons because now wealth is land, and you don't know it's your son if your wife can have intercourse with several men, right? But in a matrilineal culture, that didn't matter. Control of women's sexuality didn't matter because it went by the mother. You know who the mother is, right?
And there are still societies that operate that way.
Yeah.
And I just gave you a source to find them. I read about 50 of them that are still matrilineal and matrilocal, which means the men move into the woman's family instead of the woman moving into the man's family. And in great description, you can read it.
All right, so here we go. We're going to go to the text.
I think it would be important if we set a time up to continue this conversation.
If people want to do that, that's fine. Okay. So we're at Lech Lecha. So that's the name of this parsha. As we're at chapter 12, verse 1, as we begin the story of Avram and Sarai. All right. Vayomer Yud Vavhe. So Yud Vavhe speaks El Avram to Avram and says, Lech Lecha. And of course, there's lots of ink spilled on what does this mean? What is that Lecha doing there? What is Lech? Go. What's Lecha?
Be yourself.
Bert with his rabbinic translation, Lech Lecha, go to yourself. Rabbinic. What does it mean in biblical Hebrew? Lech Lecha. It doesn't translate.
Oh, that's easier.
Lech Lecha, go to you. Okay, that makes no sense, right? Makes no sense. Go to you. Some people want to say it's an imperative. Take away the vowels. If I take away the vowels, what is it now? Lech, lech.
Go.
Go. So some people want to interpret this as an imperative, like go, like for real go. Like go. Like get yourself up and get yourself going. Get out of bed, which was not easy for some of us on Wednesday morning. Okay, so lech. Okay, that makes more sense, but it's interesting that that's not grammatically what they do with this. It's lech lecha, go to you. Okay, but what we know is it's something about go out because we get a mem from, right? Me artzcha, from your land. Umi moladetcha, and from the place you were born. Umi beit avicha, and from the house of your ancestor. El haaretz asher areka, to the place, to the land that I will show you. Okay? Ve'escha legoy gadol, and I will make you a great nation. Ve'avarecha, and I will bless you, and I will make you big. What will I make big? Shmecha, your name. I will make your name, as Debbie Friedman says, I will make your name great. Right? Vehayeh bracha, and you shall be a blessing. Right? Everybody singing it in your head right now? And you shall be a blessing. Okay, very good. So this is where she gets it, right? This is right out of Torah. Lech Lecha. All right. And further, I will bless your blessers, and I will curse those that curse you. V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpechot ha'adama, and all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. Okay.
This is clearly before anti-Semitism.
Vayelech Abraham ka'asher diber elav Adonai. And so Abraham goes as God had said to him. Adonai, sorry. Vayelech Abraham ka'asher diber elav Adonai. So he does what Yud Vavhe says. Vayelech ito Lot. And so his nephew Lot goes with him. Ve'Avram ben chamesh shanim v'shiv'im shana b'tzeito mecharan. And Avram was 75 years old, b'tzeito mecharan, when he went out from the town of Haran. All right. So we trace these stories back to Haran. We trace them back to Mesopotamia. Okay? So there's lots written about the derivations of these stories based on place names. Right? So Avram is from Haran.
Mookie.
Okay. So, right? And so here we get in verse 5, Vayikach Avram et Sarai ishto. And so Abraham takes his wife Sarai and Lot ben Achiv, Lot, the son of his brother, right? And all their stuff, right? That they had stuffified. Ve'et hanefesh asher asu. And all of the souls that they had, literally what? Ve'et hanefesh asher asu. The souls that they had what? Made. Which is interesting. Bert will tell us what the rabbis do with that. Haran, that they had made in Haran, Vayetzu lalechet arza Kna'an, and they went towards the land of Kna'an, and they came to the land of Kna'an. Okay, so I'm going to do one more verse. Okay, no, maybe two. Vayavor Avram ba'aretz, and Avram passes through the land. So look at this verb. Ya'avor. What is this tripartite root of that verb on verse 6? Avar. What does avar mean? To pass. Ya'avor Avram ba'aretz. And so what would you say, how would you translate this? Avram passed in the land. So he's passing in the land. They're semi-nomadic pastoralists, right? So they've got their flocks and their stuff and their caravan. He's very wealthy. This is a caravan, right? He's a sheikh. He's a desert sheikh. He's very wealthy. He goes out with all of his folks and all his stuff, and he's passing through the land. Ad lakom Shechem, until they come to Shechem. Ad Elon Moreh, to the Elon, this tree, Moreh, of Moreh. So this must be a tree that is known, right? It just says the Elon of Mamre, the terebinth of Mamre. Okay, so everyone must know what that is and what that means. When you have goddess worshiping cultures, groves were sacred places for the goddess. Trees were a symbol of connecting, as we read in the Eden story, the underground to the heavens. Right? So groves were sacred to the goddess. If there was a tree that stood alone, that was a sacred tree. Like super special sacred tree. Most likely, the terebinth of Mamre was such a tree that had been known as a sacred tree to goddess worshiping people in Mesopotamia. In Canaan, on their journey around Shechem.
Is a sheikh just a leaf?
Like a big shot.
Okay.
A big shot. A macher. He's a macher. Okay. Now, V'haknaani and the Canaanites, az ba'aretz, were still in the land. Okay, so when is this written?
Later.
Right? So, this is written by Israelites who have settled the land already. Okay. Vayar Adonai el Avram. And God appears to Avram, Vayomer, and says, Lizar'acha eten et ha'aretz hazot. To your seed will I give this land. Vayiven sham mizbeach la'Adonai, and he builds there a mizbeach, what's it in English? An altar? La'Adonai, to Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, hanir elav, who appeared to him. Okay? All right. We are not told anything about what Sarai thinks about all this. Right? We just know that Avram has this relationship with this God, Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, that nobody in the neighborhood knows about. Right? And so he has a vision, he has a call, he has whatever, and he goes and he takes everybody with him, everything with them as they go to Shechem, to Canaan, from Haran, Mesopotamia. Yeah? We good so far? Okay. So, what does it mean, all these folks they made with them in Haran? The rabbis want to say, any guesses? Come on, you know the rabbis, come on. The sages, what do they say? Of course, these must be No, we have that, but we also have all the folks they made
Followers.
of followers of Yud Hey Vav Hey. People, you're not like guys. These are converts. They made people in Haran, meaning they converted them to Yahism. Of course. Oh my God. So people did not drink enough coffee or eat their Wheaties this morning. You put on your rabbinic hat. These are converts. Avram and Sarai are the first monotheists. The people they made through conversion.
And I'm a bot Abraham.
You are a bat Avraham the Sarah for that reason.
Yes.
Because everyone who joins the Jewish people becomes adopted by the Jewish people. If you're adopted into the Jewish people, you become a descendant of Abraham and Sarah. So everyone who converts, their name is Bat or Ben Avraham V'Sarah.
Your Judy was an Abraham.
She was Bat Avraham V'Sarah. Okay. So let's dig in a little. All right. So why does verse 1 have to say, leave your land, the place of your birth, the house of your father? Isn't it enough to say go? Why do you need all these words here? Torah's very terse. You're writing it on clay. It's heavy.
Yeah.
You use as few words as possible when you're writing on clay. Why put all these words here?
No,
Go ahead.
like make your new family. Like this, this is your blood family, but you need a new family.
Okay. So you're going to leave Beit Avicha. You are leaving your familial home. What does that do in the ancient world if you leave your familial home, your tribe? You are very vulnerable. You need the protection of your tribe in the ancient world, particularly if you're a semi-nomadic pastoralist. People need to know, word gets out that you messed with, the son of so-and-so, right? Your people are now in trouble because they're very powerful, right? So when you start in the neighborhood, right? You leave your neighborhood, you are very vulnerable. You have women, children, animals, slaves. All these people are under your protection. Okay? We forget this about Avram, by the way. We forget that he goes to war to protect, right? And he gets into war with the 5 kings. So Avram, at this point, you can imagine he's got a sword sheathed while he rides at the head of this caravan. It's his job to protect everybody who's vulnerable in his party, right? Okay. Presumably, yes. Well, he's got enough guys that know what they're doing, right? You don't travel, even today, with a big retinue without security, right? You've got your Hummers and your whatever, and then you got security that gets out ahead of you and scouts it and whatever. Okay. So we can assume that's what's going on. So you're going to leave your family. So now your familial ties are not going to help you. What else is he leaving? He's leaving his land. What's he leaving?
His way of feeding his family.
All of the above. His living. How's he gonna? If you need a place to pasture your flocks, if you're a semi-nomadic pastoralist, well, you don't own the land you're now moving through. So you've lost access to the land. Leave your land. Your land, mean the land your family owns. Think of Dallas. You are leaving the wealth that you get from being connected to the land that your family has control of.
Sounds like an immigrant.
Sounds a bit like an immigrant. Just saying. The place you were born. Everything you've ever known.
Religious.
Your religion. You're leaving access to all of that. All right. You're leaving. What else are you leaving? Language, culture, your traditions, safety, maybe even cuisine, right? You're leaving everything that you know and are familiar with. Dana? No, of course. Of course. I only asked why all these words. Because I think Torah is trying to make a point about they're leaving everything that would have them feel safe and secure. They are taking with them portable goods, and he's going to buy his way to access. And that, of course, is what he's going to take with him. There are people who want to say this is why God chose him, because it doesn't tell us why God chose him, right? But the rabbis want to say, well, God chose somebody who had enough of all of that inside to be able to make a whole new life. Doesn't every immigrant who makes it and is successful have to have that resilience and commitment to being open to change and adapting?
Doesn't every convert?
Yes, absolutely. Every immigrant, every convert, right? That is what's required. And so Avram is the first convert. And Sarai, eventually we assume. We don't know. We actually don't know what goes on with Sarai. There are theories that she leaves him. Savina Tuval's theory is that she leaves Avram because she dies. They die in different places. And that she goes back to her Mesopotamian priestess lifestyle. Okay. But
Is this to describe one of his primary characteristics being is to be brave to do this?
I think Torah wants us to read into these words. That's why they're here. Yes. I think it wants us to read in. So if you had to do all that, what would you have to have, right? To be able to do that. And so I think, yes, Torah wants us thinking about that. Exactly. Okay. So I think that's why all those words are there, to really focus us on what they're giving up and what they have to have in order to be willing to do that, right? This is not easy. You're going to the place I will show you. God does not give them a city name or a country name or GPS coordinates. That is seemingly purposeful. Why? If you want somebody to leave everything they know, wouldn't you try to sell them on where they're going? I'm taking you to such a great... Moshe does it all the time. Moshe said to the Israelites all the time, it's going to be great. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. It's going to be a great life there in New York. It's the golden in Medina. The streets are paved with gold. God says, go to the place, I'll show you. Okay.
In fact, when you start conversion, the rabbis say, why do you want to do this? Why do you want this?
All right. So some people want to suggest Moshe, wrong book, Amy. Avram goes because of verse 2. The rabbis are worried that people will think Avram went because of verse 2. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I'll make your name great, and you will be, and those who bless you will be blessed, those who curse you will be cursed, and you are going to be such a big shot, and you're going to have so many offspring. That's why Avram goes. The rabbis are worried about that. We don't have to worry about that, but the rabbis are very worried about that. God forbid you should think Avram Avinu would go, was only motivated by he's going to be a big shot, right? God forbid, chas v'shalom, that we should think that. So we're going to look at a little bit of commentary on that. But I want to stay for a moment with this business of leaving everything. The rabbis understand, and I think Torah really understands how incredibly terrifying it is to get out from everything you're familiar with, everything you hoped for, everything you thought was going to be your future, to a place it doesn't even have a name. I'm not even going to tell you about it. I'll show you, and you'll know it when you get there. And that is how I woke up Wednesday morning. Right? And so this this set of commentaries was like, oh yeah, this is landing for me right now. This just complete sense of leaving everything that one kind of assumed was happening and what was going to be the future. And Torah seems to be saying, guess what? That's not how it works. That's not where growth comes from. That's not where new stuff comes from. It comes from disruption.
I can't help thinking of my grandparents. I'm sure many of us have grandparents who left places at 20, not 75, but maybe 25.
Or yeah.
And we're coming to a place that They hoped, well, they hoped,
It would be better.
but it did take incredible courage.
Yes. Incredible courage. I met with a woman yesterday who wants to convert to Judaism. She's seeing someone in our congregation who I adore. So she must be a good person because I love him so much. He's from Iran and she's also from Iran. And if she's converting and she's from Iran, what do you think she was raised as? Muslim. And she says, these are not my words, these are her words. It's only about power and control and war and taking over and women have to be controlled and all of that. Yes, thank you. And she said, I come here and it's all joy. And when somebody is hurting, everybody is there and has their back. And it's about, right. So, but the courage, like she talked about, if I were to go back to Iran, and it would be known that I converted, I would be killed. So just the incredible courage it takes to leave it can be dangerous to leave, right? And, we look at, like he said, grandparents, and these kids that come over,
You can never go back.
and you can't go back.
We look at the other side of it for a second. It's not just the courage to leave, but sometimes people only leave when things are that bad. You
Right.
don't leave when things are good.
So that's the other reason this is a compelling narrative, is because everything's good. Avram is wealthy. It's a big difference. There is nothing wrong in his life that we're told. Torah says, God says to him, go, and he goes. Right? So it's an even bigger, to your point, it's an even bigger thing that Avram just goes, takes everything and goes when he's a wealthy guy with good connections. Okay. All right. So, there's no reason for him to go, except Torah makes it very clear why he goes. Because God said to. He's faithful. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay. Let's look at what Rashi says on our first words, Lech Lecha. Oh.
We
Yeah.
got it.
They got it.
Okay.
Go, Lisa.
Amy, I don't know if this is relevant, but when I converted, I was asked to leave my sorority. I had my grades lowered by my major professor.
Yeah. There are real risks and real
My parents thought I was
consequences.
going to hell.
Yeah.
I
There are
tried
real
everything
consequences.
at home. I had to leave Texas
Yeah.
to get away.
Exactly.
That was easy. But I could never go back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Torah understands that, right? That you can't go.
And it was a calling.
And
I
if
had
it,
everything I needed there.
right.
But it was a calling.
And if it's not clear here, it's going to get clear at the edge of the sea, right? Like in case it wasn't clear here, you can't go back. It's going to get very clear at the sea when Pharaoh's chariots are coming and there's water in front of you, right? It's going to get very clear. The only way out of here is forward, that to a path we don't see, because you cannot go back or you'll be cut down. All right. And what happens to the one person who does long to go back? What happens to her? She turns into a pillar of salt. The one, right? When she's told, don't even look back. Lot's wife is told, don't look back at Sodom and Gomorrah. She turns around and ossifies. That is a very clear message from Torah. If you don't move forward, you will ossify. Okay.
Clear message today.
It's right. I'm telling you, people, I needed this Torah this week. I really needed this Torah this week, as usual. Lech Lecha. Get thee out is how Rashi is going to translate that. Go for you. Lech Lecha means not go to you, go for you. This is for you, Avram, for your own benefit, for your own good. God is saying this. I will make of you a great nation. While here, you will not merit the privilege of having children. This comes from the Talmud, Rosh Hashanah 16b. Furthermore, I shall make known your character throughout the world. That's from Midrash Tanchuma. Okay, so what's Rashi's drawing on the Midrash, both in Talmud and in Tanchuma, to say, Lech Lecha means this is good for you. If you stay here, you won't have children through Sarai. Doesn't say why. This is supposed to be Rashi's explanation. How did you get there? Right? Like, so how did the Midrash get there? We don't know. But the Midrash seems to understand this is for your benefit, Avram. You can't have children here. Something about what's going to happen to you on the way or in this new place, in this new life, in this new way of doing things that you never imagined you were going to be about, that is what's going to make you fruitful. Okay. I needed that this week. Okay. Or Chaim, another message we are to derive from this verse is that though Abraham did not yet know which country God wanted him to go to, he had already set out without using the excuse of waiting for further instructions before leaving his home. Yeah? All right. So this is the concern that I was talking to you about. Here's how we know. Thank you. Here's how we know it's a concern, because the Or HaChaim has to say it explicitly, right? Avram didn't know what was going to happen, but he'd already set out. How do we get that? From what words do we get that? That he went. Okay. Aviva Zornberg, the demand on Abraham and Sarah is to leave one existential environment, one set of paradigms to emerge. And she quotes 15:5, where God takes Avram outside, right? And says, look up at the stars. So they have to leave one existential environment, one set of paradigms to come outside, to emerge from their enclosure in the present. She adds the words deathly sterile when outgrown, into a new condition in which a fertile self-realization becomes possible. The shredding of destiny. There is kriya, like we do at a funeral. Kriya, the tearing, right, of the garment when someone dies. There is kriya, a tearing apart of a gestalt, apparently cut and dried. Gzardin is literally the cutting edge of judgment, the irrevocable sentence of fate. So this language of cutting, right, is there. It is possible, the sages insist, that Abraham is the first to live this possibility, to move to a new place, to deconstruct all the structures of the old place of being, and in a radical act of kriya, of akira, to create entirely new paradigms of reality. So Sarah is akara, barren in this place, right? So is he to some extent, because she is. So he can't have a son through her as long as she's barren. So this sense of when you outgrow something, it is sterile. There isn't fruitfulness there. It's not possible. But the old play being okay, to create entirely new paradigms of reality. A voice urging discontinuity seduces him. Only through a destabilizing process can Abraham move from being Avram, the father of Aram, that place, the father of that place, right? Mastery. Father means master. She says, suggesting mastery over a known modality of existence, a sterile fatherhood, to being Avraham, Av Hamon Goyim, the father of many nations. The father of many people, master of multiple successive places, who can then engender his true being. And then the Torah tells us Avraham has a son. Right? Now, Avraham has two sons, and he's going to have two peoples through those two sons, right? So, but it takes this destabilizing process for that to happen, or he would have remained Avram, the father of one place, but that's it. To be Avraham, to be expansive, and to be Av Hamon Goyim, the father, the ancestor of many people, he has to leave the old paradigm, and he has to move into something completely new. As always, Aviva Zornberg, brilliant.
That story, though, of having to have a concubine first, and then magically, almost, Sarai can have a son too. I don't understand how that fits into the structure of of morality and of tribal. Well, men had many wives.
Yeah, this is not monogamy. This is polygamy.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's the norm.
yeah.
Right? So everybody wants to say marriage is between one man and one woman, and therefore there shouldn't be gay marriage, has not read the Bible.
Yeah.
Because that is not the definition of marriage in the Bible.
Never mind that question.
So anyway. All right. Bereshit Rabbah. Vayomer Adonai el Avram, Lech Lecha me'artzecha v'gomer. All right. So God says to Avram, go forth from your land, etc. V'gomer is etc. in Rabbinic Hebrew. Rabbi Yitzchak said, this may be compared to a man who was traveling from place to place when he saw a burning castle. He said, is it possible that this castle lacks a person to look after it? The owner of the building looked out and said, I am the owner of the castle. Similarly, because Abraham, our ancestor, said, is it possible that this castle has no master, no one to look after it? The Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy Blessed One, looked out and said to him, I am the master of the universe. Hence, God said to Abraham, Lech Lecha. Okay. It does not explain Lech Lecha at all. At all. However, this is a very famous midrash, and it's a midrash I learned at Hartman. But I didn't remember that it was attached to Lech Lecha. I just remember it as the way they talk about this midrash in Hebrew, the palace that is doleket. So now we're going to look at what does doleket mean, right? So we're gonna look at that. But here in this early iteration of the midrash in Bereshit Rabbah is an early midrash on Bereshit. All we know about this midrash that gets attached to Lech Lecha is that Avram sees something that makes him say, does this castle not have a master? It's something that he understands according to the rabbis. He intuits that there must be something bigger because of something he sees in the world. Does that make sense? Just like if you saw a palace, right?
It means something.
And it's on fire. Just if you see that there's a palace.
There's power now.
Oh, wait, I want to go to, what's the Hebrew here? Yeah, here we go. Bira achat doleket. A palace that is doleket. I don't want to use the English here. Doleket. Lit up. Literally lit up. Now, how do you light something up? We just had a whole conversation last week about this, didn't we? We had a whole conversation about lighting the ark. And you saw how much conversation there was about that, right? So the rabbis here, if a castle is lit up, how can it be lit up? What are the possibilities?
Either by it being
it's on fire.
Or a fire.
Or
it's really a lot of wealth and it's really well lit. Either way, Avram is asking, if it's on fire, where's the king? Where's the queen? How come they aren't rallying the fire people to put it out? Isn't there somebody taking care of this? If it's lit up brilliantly just because it's so gorgeous,
who owns this?
Who owns this? There must be somebody who is taking care of this because look at it. All right, now, which way you go with translating doleket becomes critically important to how you understand the midrash, right? Is doleket lit up brilliantly or is doleket on fire? Huge difference, okay? So you can imagine when I saw this, I was like, oh, right. There's the whole midrash of the whole thing is on fire. I forgot. And Malila taught us this gorgeous set of teachings around this, but I'm going to relate it to Lech Lecha because I forgot it was related to Lech Lecha. I was so excited to see it there. So what does Aviva Zornberg say? Bira doleket, one definition, a palace aglow, full of light, and someone is tending to it. In other words, Avram sees the beauty, the order, the coherence of the world and of life, and knew there was a higher consciousness behind it all. God was taking care of the world, and that moment brings God's words, Lech Lecha. All right, so it's Avraham has a realization, It's right in the wake of that realization that there must be somebody in charge of this gorgeousness of the stars and the moon and the sun. It is also glorious and so coherent and follows the laws of nature, and the rains fall in its right season, right? And lambs bring forth the other lambs. Sheep bring forth lambs, right? It's all so amazing. There must be a higher something behind this. That intuition opens him to God's call. So think of Rambam, the Neoplatonist, the Neo-Aristotelian. Rambam says there can't ever be a change in God. If you're a Neoplatonist or a Neo-Aristotelian, you can't have a change in God. God is perfect. If God is perfect, God can't change. Perfection doesn't change. So God can't be talking to Avram 1 minute and then not the next minute. And there can't be God is talking to Abraham, not talking to Abraham, and then calls him. That is not possible for Rambam or any Neoplatonists and Neo-Aristotelians, right? It's not possible. So for Rambam, God is always calling Lech Lecha. It's Avram who had a change in himself that opens him to hearing the call that's always going out, Lech Lecha. The second possibility paints an enormously different picture. A palace in flames. The world is in chaos, catching fire, turmoil, and pain abounds. Where's the caretaker? Asks Avram. The world will be destroyed. It is out of destruction that God's words come to Avram, as if to say, I am here, even in the destruction. So what is the aha moment Avraham has if you translate it the other way? Is there nobody taking care of this disastrous, monstrous business where people are suffering and it's crazy and innocence or like, what is this? Surely, is there nobody home? And that's when, right, the answer comes, Lech Lecha, I'll show you. And I am here even in what you perceive as chaos, destruction, the whole thing being on fire. Okay, right? That's a good one for this week. Okay, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs writes, what haunts us about the Midrash is not just Abraham's question, but God's reply. He's talking about this Midrash. God gives an answer that no is answer. God says, in effect, I am here without explaining the flames. God does not attempt to put out the fire. It is as if instead God were calling for help. Abraham asks God, where are you, when he sees everything on fire? God asks man, why did you abandon me? So begins a dialogue, says Sachs, between earth and heaven that has no counterpart in any other faith, and which has not ceased for 4,000 years. In these questions, which only the other can answer, God and man find one another. Perhaps only together can they extinguish the flames. Mic drop, right? Like table slam. Like it just doesn't get better. For me, this was so the Torah I needed, right? That, we say, where are you? And God says, where are you? Where are y'all? Ayeka. The first question in the Torah is God to Adam. Ayeka. Hineni is supposed to be the answer, but where am I? Where are y'all? It's not said, if I have to come down there one more time, right? There's going to be trouble, right? So, yeah, where are you? Why did you leave me? World's on fire. It's going to take both of us to put it out. Lovely, right? The people, when they're like, where's Moses? He's late. Where are you? Where are you? Led them to the calf. If I don't know where you are, I panic. One answer is the calf. One answer is I hear Lech Lecha, right? We know from the ways we tell these stories and what happens after these stories, we know what the right answer is, right? Where are you? And we panic. The answer is to hear the call Lech Lecha. Then get up, start moving, and get out into it. All the stuff you hear so disoriented by, get out in it. And I'll be there. I'll show you. But you have to leave. You have to go into that mess. Now. Not tomorrow. Now. Go, Lech. And if you go the other way, we know what happens. If you build a cab to say, oh, well, there you are. Now I feel better. The thing that Mark always talks about, the transitional object thingy, right? If you do that, then we know what that leads to. Not good. Ha ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. So the calf is weighty, full of itself. What are they supposed to build? A big space called the Mishkan that's empty, right? In the place where they build a box that's empty. And they put in there the instruction about how to do this, how to deal with the fact that it's all on fire, right? Okay. Walking with fear. The fact that they struggled so much and so consistently in the first few chapters of their journeys can be more easily understood if we imagine that each step was made with shaking feet. The fact that they were sometimes so unkind to one another, this is Avram and Sarai, makes more sense when we consider that they were battling with their individual insecurities and against their concerns for what the future might bring, right? When we get really anxious, what do?
We get irritable.
We get irritable and we turn on each other. So David, to your point, they both bump up against each other because of this, but also notice he takes everyone with him, right? We have to do it together. It's too weighty. You're right. It's too weighty. And Torah knows this. It's too weighty to do by ourselves. He takes everybody with him. Everything. Yeah? All right. The Sarai and Avram, who left their homeland, had not vanquished their fears, but had instead refused to allow those concerns to keep them from living, from walking forward, even as their legs shook and their palms were damp. They may have been scared, but they kept moving forward. And in moments like this one, we should remember that the first Jewish people were brave not because they were fearless, but because they were scared. We should remember that being Jewish is not about being born Avraham and Sarah, but is instead about transforming ourselves from Avram and Sarai. That is the story of the Jewish people. When we ask, why do we tell these stories? What are the Israelites doing when they make these our ancestor stories? I believe her. I believe this is true. One of the things the Israelites are doing is saying you don't get born into who you're going to become. You can do that, but that's not our story. We don't descend from those people. We descend from Avram and Sarai, who become Avraham and Sarah. That is our origin story. That's fundamentally saying something about who we are as a people. And I have to believe, I really, truly am a holy roller when it comes to this stuff. This is where I'm a fundy. And I believe every word of this, that's how we have survived 4,000 years. Because we are always responding to Lech Lecha. We've been kicked out of every place we've ever been. Lech Lecha. And we somehow, not all of us, but some of us, started over, right? On shaking legs and sweaty palms. They got on boats. They got on horses, right? They got on airplanes and ships. And here we are sitting around this table. Because enough people did that were Jews who got Lech Lechad, and because other folks also journeyed out from their origins and chose to be part of this craziness called the Jewish people.
Haven't been kicked out.
Yeah. Okay, we are not going there. We are not going there tonight. We are going to keep walking. Lech Lecha. Yes. The important thing is not to let fear be everything. Lech Lecha, go forth. We journey not without fear, but through fear. We journey with the support and love, Dana, of friends and family of other faiths. We journey because we are scared but determined. We journey together. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Isn't that beautiful? As readers of these texts, we can relate. We know that it can be daunting to put one foot in front of the other when we don't know what's coming next, when we feel trepidation and anticipation. Through the lens of generosity, I would suggest we read Lech Lecha, says Rabbanit Alyssa Thomas Newborn here in LA. I would suggest we read Lech Lecha with a new interpretation as a moral imperative to give at times of insecurity, specifically when we are not guaranteed stability. To read Lech Lecha as go beyond you, namely, go to the place where you are able to see beyond yourself and into the hearts and needs of others. May we each personally reflect on these words and make them our mantra. Through them, God challenges us to choose to make life good, to create connection and meaning when they are lacking. This is a legacy of Avraham that defines us as Jews today, that we strive to be people who take a step forward with generous and open hearts, specifically when we don't yet know where our feet will land, people. So I want to close with the words of Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, also known as the Velveteen Rabbi. First step. It's not going to be easy. All of your roadmaps are wrong. That was another country. Those lakes have dried up, and new groundwater is welling in places you won't expect. You'll begin the journey in fog, destination unknown, impossible. Don't be surprised by tears. This right here is holy ground. Take a deep breath and turn away from cynicism and despair. Listen to the voice from on high and deep within, the one that says, I'm calling you to a place which I will show you, and take the first small step into the surprising.
You've been listening to Rabbi Amy Bernstein's Friday morning Torah study from Kehillat Israel in Pacific Palisades, California. For more information, go to our website, www.ourki.org.